It was a foggy Tuesday night when Pakwardi began his last intercity bus route for the day. The terminal had closed, and the streets were nearly deserted. As he maneuvered the large vehicle through the highway exits, the thick mist rolled across the road like a curtain, reducing visibility to almost nothing. Inside the dimly lit bus, only 2 passengers sat near the front, fast asleep. The rest of the seats were empty, silent. The interior lights flickered sporadically, an electrical issue he was used to. Still, something about tonight felt wrong. He turned on the radio for company, but it was only static, no signal. Even the road itself seemed unnaturally still, as if time had slowed. As he passed a small, crumbling bridge near kilometer 4, he thought he saw something move in the rear-view mirror figure. A flash of white. But when he looked directly, there was nothing. Just empty seats and swirling fog behind the window glass. He chuckled nervously to himself and sipped from his metal thermos. At exactly 22:30, he checked his watch and refocused on the road ahead. The unease settled deeper in his chest, like a cold weight. He reminded himself to stay calm, it was just another night route. But deep down, something in his instincts stirred. This night wasn't like the others. The air inside the bus grew colder. He adjusted the fan settings, but the chill didn't go away. Instead, it felt like it was coming from within the bus itself. He rubbed his hands together and gripped the wheel tighter. And so the journey into the unknown began. At 20 to 30, on a road few traveled, on a night no one would forget. As the bus rolled slowly along the damp, silent road, a strange shape emerged through the thickening fog ahead. At first, Pakwardi thought it was a trick of the light, but as the headlights pierced the mist, the figure became clear. A lone woman standing by the roadside, just past an abandoned toll gate. She didn't move much. Her posture was stiff, her arms limp at her sides. Her head was slightly tilted and her long black hair clung to her shoulders, wet from the dew or something else entirely. Her face, however, was shadowed, almost deliberately hidden from view. Pakwardi instinctively slowed the bus. The woman raised one arm slowly, not waving, but signaling. Her movement was unnaturally smooth, too controlled, too silent. He hesitated for a moment. Night passengers weren't uncommon, but something about this felt off. Still, regulations were regulations. He stopped and opened the door with a mechanical hiss. The woman stepped in without saying a word. Her footsteps made no sound on the metal floor. She walked straight to the very back seat and sat down, keeping her head bowed. Pakwardi greeted her softly. No response. No coins dropped into the fare box. He glanced at her through the mirror. She didn't look up, just sat there rigid and silent. He shrugged off the discomfort and drove on. But as the road wound forward and the bus rumbled into deeper fog, the silence inside grew heavier, the kind of silence that pressed against your chest. He peeked again into the rearview mirror. She hadn't moved, still as stone, and somehow she looked even darker in the reflection. 10 minutes passed. The road twisted along the edge of a ravine. The mist outside thickened into a wall. Inside, the bus was oppressively quiet except for the dull hum of the engine and the occasional rattle from loose windows. Compelled by a strange instinct, checked his rearview mirror again. The woman was gone. His eyes widened. He blinked rapidly, leaned slightly to the side, still gone. The back row was empty. He hadn't heard her move, he hadn't stopped. There was nowhere she could have gone. Cold sweat began to gather on his neck. He adjusted the mirror, now fully alert. A flicker dot in the corner of the reflection, a blur barely visible, moved quickly across the aisle. He whipped his head around. Nothing, rows of empty seats. But when he looked back at the mirror, she was there again. Same seat, same posture, still staring at the floor, but this time her body seemed a little off, as if her head had twisted slightly farther than natural. Her hands now rested on her lap, but they looked too pale. Almost gray. Pakwardi's heart thundered in his chest. Then, something more chilling. She wasn't in the mirror anymore. He looked at her directly as she was there, but the mirror reflected only the seat. A passenger with no reflection. He wanted to stop the bus, open the doors, flee. But his limbs felt locked in place. The steering wheel burned cold in his hands. He whispered a prayer and kept driving. The air turned colder. Every breath Pakwardi took left a mist in front of him. He glanced down at the climate control as the AC was off. Then came the sound of breath lull. Right behind his seat, he dared not turn around. His skin prickled as goosebumps rose. Then came a second sound, a low creak, a seat moving. Then another. He gripped the wheel tighter, but curiosity clawed at him. Slowly he reached for the mirror and adjusted it again. Nothing. He scanned the side mirrors. Empty finally. Trembling, he pulled the bus to the shoulder. The vehicle hissed to a stop. He turned on the interior lights and stood. Each step down the aisle echoed. He checked each row. Empty, until he reached the very back. There on the seat where she had been was something small. He reached for it, an old yellowed bus ticket. The ink was faded but still readable. Name Maya Ningzi, destination Tana Kusadat, July 3rd, 2004. His throat tightened. That was over 20 years ago. On the back, scribbled faintly, I just want to go home. He staggered back down the aisle. nearly tripping. The bus groaned as he restarted the engine. He emerged back onto the road and then it came from behind. He didn't dare turn around. When he finally peeked at the dashboard, the ticket was gone. Only a patch of dust marked where it had been. Packworthy drove with trembling hands. His eyes darted constantly between the road and the mirror. The back seat was empty at every few moments. He thought he saw something flicker there. A hint of movement, a shadow that shouldn't exist. The fog outside grew impossibly thick. Headlights barely cut through it. The trees lining the road looked like ghostly figures swaying in slow motion. Every time he blinked, he imagined her eyes dark, endless. Watching Dot at one point, he passed another driver going the opposite direction. He flashed his lights, a silent cry for reassurance. The other bus passed without a glance. Then, the whisper returned. "I'm still here." It wasn't angry, longing, sad, and close. He tightened his grip again. "You're not real," he muttered. But even as he said it, the scent of something floral jasmine filled the cabin, faint, unnatural. When he glanced once more, her silhouette returned to the back seat. This time, she faced forward, her face barely visible. Her eyes locked with his in the mirror, no reflection, no blink, just that gaze, heavy and eternal. Then the bus engine sputtered. The lights dimmed. He stomped the gas, nothing. He looked at the fuel gauge, still half full. Then suddenly the lights came back. The engine roared. She was gone. Not in the seat, not in the mirror, but her voice lingered almost there. He reached the edge of town finally. A small rest post by the highway lit the road like a beacon. He stopped the bus and rushed inside, calling for help. A night officer came out. Waddy explained everything in a trembling voice. She was there, a woman. Long hair, she disappeared. The ticket, look at this. But when he pulled out the old ticket, it was blank. No writing, just yellow paper. The officer raised an eyebrow. "Pack, are you sure you're okay?" Still shaken, Waddy led the officer to the bus. She was there. Back row, smiling. He pointed it to Dia, but the officer frowned. "Who?" "There's no one there." He looked again, still smiling, still watching. Only he could see her. Packworthy never drove the night shift again. He asked for morning routes. He sold his old He removed every rear-view mirror in his home and car. But on July 3rd every year, around 20 to 45, the whisper returns. "I just want to go home." Sometimes, passengers on that route report cold air. Others say they saw a woman standing on the roadside at night, always alone, always in gray. Waiting drivers say if you stop, she gets on, and once she's aboard, she never truly leaves. Her story is told in hushed tones across depots. Maya Ningsi, the lost girl, the eternal passenger. Packworthy tells no one now, but every year he locks himself inside and prays because he knows she's still riding.